This is Top Accolade Global News Updates. I am Soybifa Jackrich. Hamas and Israel were expected to release more hostages and prisoners on Wednesday, the last day of the prolonged six-day truce in the Gaza Strip conflict, as attention focused on whether mediator Qatar could negotiate another extension. Israeli media, citing the Prime Minister's office, reported that Israel received a list of hostages expected to be released by Hamas. On Wednesday, the Prime Minister's office had no immediate comments. Israel has said the truce could be prolonged further, provided Hamas continues to free at least 10 Israeli hostages per day, but with fewer women and children still in captivity, keeping the guns quiet beyond Wednesday may require negotiating to free at least some Israeli men for the first time. The Palestinian militant group Hamas and allied group Islamic Jihad freed 12 hostages on Tuesday, bringing the total released since the truce began on Friday to 81. Those have been mostly Israeli women and children, along with foreign citizens. The hostages, 10 Israeli women and 2 Thai citizens, were aged 17 to 84 and included a mother-daughter pair. All were given initial medical checks, then moved to Israeli hospitals where they were to meet their families. A short time later, Israel released 30 Palestinians from Al-Fa prison in the occupied West Bank and a Jerusalem detention center. The Palestinian Prisoners Club, a semi-official organization, said half were women and the remainder were teenage males. That brought the total number of Palestinians released under the truce to 180. The officials discussed possible parameters of a new phase of the truce deal, including Hamas releasing hostages who are men or military personnel, not just women and children. A source briefed on the matter said they also considered what might be needed to reach a ceasefire lasting more than a handful of days. Qatar spoke to Hamas before the meeting to get a sense of what the group might agree to. The Israelis and Hamas are now internally discussing the ideas explored at the meeting, the source added. Separately, foreign ministers of the Group of 7 Nations on Tuesday called in a joint statement for an extension of the ceasefire and more humanitarian aid. About 159 hostages remain in Gaza, the White House said on Tuesday. This includes 8 to 9 Americans. U.S. National Security spokesperson John Kirby said the U.S. was hopeful Hamas would release more Americans and the U.S. government would work with Qatar to extend the pause in fighting. Vietnam's parliament decided on Wednesday to raise the effective tax rate on multinationals, including Samsung, to 15% from January 1st, and delayed measures to offset the higher levy in a potential blow to the foreign investment the company relies on. Parliament approved the higher tax rates as part of a global tax reform and said the government would work on specific incentives in 2024. Vietnam's corporate income tax is already set at 20%, but it has offered 4 years much lower effective rates to large foreign investors. With the new rates, 122 foreign companies will face a steep increase in their tax costs, according to a document prepared by the government, which estimated the additional intake for the state at $14.6 trillion, that is $601 million a year. A large portion of the additional tax bill is expected to show that by Samsung alone, its multi-billion-dollar revenues from its factories are the largest in the country, according to one person involved in the preparation of the new incentives. The South Korean electronics giant, which assembles half of its smartphones in Vietnam, paid as little as 5.1% in tax in 2019 in one of the Vietnamese provinces where it has operations. Samsung did not immediately respond to queries on the tax. The Korean Chamber of Commerce in Vietnam said members were concerned about the new tax rates, but none have expressed their intentions to alter their investments in Vietnam. Foreign investors have so far poured more than $450 billion into Vietnam's more than its GDP. The Federal Aviation Administration said on Tuesday it had adopted a new aircraft certification policy requiring key flight control design changes to be considered major, like the system involved in 2 fatal Boeing BAN 737 MAX crashes in 2018 and 2019. In late 2020, Congress passed sweeping legislation to reform how the FAA certifies new airplanes, including requiring manufacturers to disclose to the FAA certain safety critical information information, including information on systems that manipulate flight controls without direct pilot input on commands after the crashes that killed 346 people. The FAA said Tuesday it was also issuing additional guidance to airplane manufacturers on how to identify safety-critical information and said both new steps will improve aircraft certification safety. Boeing did not disclose key details to the FAA of a safety system called MCAS, which was linked to both fatal crashes and designed to help counter a tendency of the MAX to pitch up. Boeing said it continues to work transparently with the FAA to ensure we continue to meet our requirements in the certification process. Plane maker Airbus did not immediately comment. A U.S. House of Representatives report said Boeing failed to classify MCAS as a safety-critical system, which would have attracted greater FAA scrutiny during the certification process, and said the FAA failed in its oversight of Boeing and its certification of the aircraft. The crashes would have cost Boeing more than $20 billion in compensation, production costs, and fines, led to a 20-month grounding for the best-selling plane. The FAA is still considering whether to certify two additional variants of the MAX, the smaller MAX 7 and larger MAX 10. The FAA said in July it will establish milestones during certification to help assess whether any design changes to airplane systems should be considered novel or unusual and therefore requires additional scrutiny. Last year, the FAA granted Boeing a shorter regulatory compliance program extension that the plane maker sought, so it can ensure the company implements required improvements. Hundreds of Catholic institutions around the globe have announced plans to divest their finances of oil, gas, and coal to help fight climate change since Pope Francis published his landmark encyclical on environmental stewardship in 2015, urging a break with fossil fuels. But in the United States, the world's top oil and gas producer, and where about a quarter of the population in Catholic, not a single diocese has announced it has let go of its fossil fuel assets. U.S. dioceses hold millions of dollars of stock in fossil fuel companies through portfolios intending to fund church operations and pay clergy salaries, according to a review of financial statements. And at least a dozen are also leasing lands to drillers, according to land records. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, USCCB, an assembly of the hierarchy of U.S. Catholic Church that sets policy guardians, said that its guidance on socially responsible investing was updated in 2021 to account for the Pope's encyclical, but confirmed that it does not require divestment from fossil fuels. Pope Francis had planned to attend the COP28 conference in Dubai this week, but cancelled on Tuesday due to health concerns. The Vatican said it was weighing options to ensure a presence at the summit, and Vatican sources said most likely a senior official would read the Pope's speech for him in Dubai, or the Pope would use a video link. The ongoing investment in the US reflects a long-running rift between US Catholic bishops and the Pope on how to address global warming. The Pope's Laudato Si encyclical urged immediate action against climate change, declaring that highly populating fossil fuels need to be progressively replaced without delay. Since then, the Vatican has repeatedly and explicitly urged Catholic institutions to divest. APSA, the department that manages the Vatican portfolio, adheres to the policy of not investing in fossil fuels and make all possible checks to ensure funds in which it has shares do not, according to a senior Vatican finance officials. The Vatican Bank, which is separate from APSA, also does not invest in fossil fuels, a bank official said. Uber will open up its platforms to London's black cabs next year, the ride-hailing firm said on Wednesday, trying to win over the British capital's taxis after a decade of tensions. London's black cab drivers, who have to pass a test called the Knowledge, requiring them to memorize thousands of routes within the city, have long been at loggerheads with Uber, arguing it threatens their livelihoods. The new service offered by Uber, which will be rolled out in early 2024, will enable black black cab drivers to sign up to the app to take booked journeys. The US-based giant is offering them no commission deal for the first 6 months, but a group representing the majority of black cab drivers dismissed the offer, saying there was no demand from members. Black cabs, also known as hackney carriages, are the only London vehicles that can pick up passengers from the street of taxied ranks in the city. They can also be booked through other apps. In London, one of the Uber's top 5 markets, the company wants taxi drivers to join its service as they have already done in Paris, New York, and Rome. It says passengers and taxi drivers both benefit when the latter work with Uber. If London's cabbies do take up the offer of joining the platform in significant numbers, it would represent a huge toll in relations. Their dispute was at its height in 2014 when cab drivers blocked the streets to protest against Uber, but they have continued to be vocal in their opposition to the service since. That is the size of top accolade global news updates. You can follow us on our social media platforms as displayed on your screen. Happy midweek.